Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this meeting of Hampshire County Council Cabinet, which is on Tuesday, the 8th of July. Got to read a quick housekeeping statement for you. Thank you for attending the meeting of Cabinet. Whilst this meeting is open to the public, it is being recorded and broadcast live on the County Council's website and will be available for repeat viewing. It may also be recorded and filmed by the press and public, none of whom are here. Filming or recording is only permitted in this room whilst the meeting is taking place, so must stop when the meeting is either adjourned or closed. Filming is not permitted elsewhere in the building at any time. If the filming of the meeting is paused for any reason while the meeting is still taking place, then an audio recording will be commenced in order to assist with minute taking and to resolve any lack of clarity. Audio recordings will not be broadcast. We're not expecting a fire drill, but in the event that there is a fire alarm, please vacate via the main reception or one of the emergency exits across the hall here. Apologies from absence. We've got apologies from Councillor Withers, who's the chairman of the Health and Social Care Committee, and also from Councillors Foster and Chad, who are both on holiday. Declarations of interest. If anybody has a pecuniary interest to declare, then can they do so, please? We have minutes of the previous meeting, which is that of two meetings, the 18th and 21st of March, which are part of your agenda pack. Hopefully, any questions or comments? No? Everyone happy? Okay, all agreed, thank you. Deputations, there are no deputations today, and so I've got a few announcements to make. The first is just to mention the Eastleigh bus incident, and so our thoughts remain with everyone affected by the serious incident on Bishopstoke Road on the 26th of June. That involved a bus carrying Barton Peveril College students. I'm very grateful to the emergency services for their swift and professional response, and we hope that those who were injured make a full and swift recovery. The incident is currently subject to a police investigation. As the circumstances surrounding the incident have not yet been established, I'd like to urge the public not to speculate while the police carry out their important work. While the County Council's educational responsibilities cover schools for children up to the age of 16, we remain ready to offer and provide any support that Barton Peveril College might need at this difficult time. And then in other sad news, I'd like to offer my and everyone's condolences to former leader of the council, Roy Perry, whose wife Veronica very sadly and very suddenly passed away a couple of weeks ago. I knew Veronica really well, and indeed she is the person that persuaded me to get back involved in politics in Hampshire, in part alongside her daughter Caroline. She spent a long time in public service herself, both as a modern languages teacher in Southampton and then as the chair of the parish council in Wellow. But I think what's probably most important is that all of us, with our various partners and spouses, put up with us being in politics and do an awful lot of a lot of waiting around, a lot of being patient, and a lot of supporting us, quite often in situations that they wouldn't wish to place themselves in. And we should always remember the commitment that our other halves give, and that certainly was the case with Veronica, who was always by Roy's side and was always of support to him. So our condolences to Roy and to Caroline and Liz, and the funeral I know is in a couple of weeks' time in Romsey Abbey, and I know many of us will be there to support Roy. In happier news, congratulations to all the Hampshire residents who were recognised in last month's King's Birthday Honours list, Zoe. They include Zoe Huggins, who was awarded the British Empire Medal for services to education, not in her role as a cabinet member here, but as a trustee and chair of the Lighthouse Learning Trust. So many congratulations. And I know you've got your date to go get it, so it's very exciting. And the other one, just to mention, is to mention the Reverend James Pitkin, who is again somebody who's local to our area, who was awarded the MBE for 25 years of voluntary service to the RAF Air Cadets as their chaplain. James is the vicar for Wellow and Sherfield English and for the Dun Valley parishes in my patch of Hampshire, and is tireless in his work with the community. He's at every fete, and he is at every school assembly, and he's a remarkable individual, and his MBE is very well deserved. Talking of things that are very well deserved, we have a new chief executive. I was going to say elect. I'm not sure what you are. Yes. Kind of elect. A putative chief executive. So Carolyn announced her retirement in March. Boo. She will have the pleasure of attending a cabinet meeting on her last working day next week.
Can't wait.
Lucky you. Look out for surprises, that's what I'm saying. So we'll save our tributes and good wishes and surprises for next week. But I'm delighted to confirm that the cross-party member appointment panel, which met on the 26th of June, has recommended Gary Westbrook, the director of Hampshire 2050, as Hampshire's next chief executive. And I have to say, Gary won through with passion and commitment, and a final and fantastic presentation against really strong competition from very many well-regarded and very experienced candidates, any of whom could have done the job, but on his own merit, very clearly Gary won the day, and many congratulations, and we all look forward to working with Gary after Carolyn's Day of Surprises next week. And talking of people stepping down, I'll provide a full update on devolution and local government organisation in the Hampshire and Solent region at the Cabinet meeting on the 18th of July. But we held our first meeting of the upper tier authority leaders and directors and chief executives on Monday, yesterday, and the progress towards the new combined authority and beginning to put all those plans in place is progressing really well, and it's really heartening to see. But what I would like to say is that is to pay some tribute to Councillor Lorna Fielker, who is the current leader of Southampton City Council, and you would have seen has decided to step down later this month. And so she'll be standing down at their full council meeting next week. The Labour group have chosen Councillor Alex Winning to be her successor, and it was good to meet Alex at the meeting yesterday, and I'm sure that he'll be a worthy successor to Lorna. Lorna, I've got to say, has been diligent and detailed and passionate and kind in progressing devolution for Hampshire and the Solent. She's been a calming voice when perhaps the three boys in the room got a bit leery with one another over different issues through those early days. But it's through her determination and her drive that all of this is happening alongside the rest of us. But much of that has been down to Lorna, and we wish her all the best with her future endeavours. And I know that she hopes to stand as one of the mayoral candidates next year. We will miss her in our meetings, but we look forward to welcoming Alex, and also to welcoming Andrew Garrett, who is a councillor on the Isle of Wight and is new deputy leader of the island and was also at the meeting. And Andrew and I were both Bournemouth councillors. We worked out 22 years ago, which is a little bit frightening for us both, but he escaped Bournemouth to the island and I escaped here. We carried out Armed Forces flag racing a couple of weeks ago on the 23rd of June. Had the great honour of attending the flag raising ceremony in Winchester. It was good to see so many people turn out for that as well. And so I extend my gratitude to everyone who organised and participated in the event, which was a fitting and moving tribute to the courage and sacrifice of those who serve in the UK's armed forces. Particularly, we'd like to thank the platoon from RAF Odium, who performed a parade in front of the Great Hall and were inspected by the Lord Lieutenant ahead of the flag raising ceremony. Simon Harmer, who's a Hampshire-based veteran who raised the flag, and Simon Lloyd, the young musician with the Hampshire Music Service, who played the trumpet superbly while the flag was raised. And finally, just a couple of notes as normal about the work that people have been doing in the County Council and all the different things that are going on. None of us decided to go to Liverpool this year. I think both the cost and the journey to the LGA conference, we decided was time and money better spent down here, focusing on what we need to do in Hampshire. But each year in the LGA Conference Innovation Zone, they present outstanding and innovative work of councils across the range of services and policy areas. And I'm delighted that our officers were invited to present at 2 of their sessions at last week's conference. One session was about the Hampshire and Isle of Wight Key Worker Housing Project, which you might wonder, why is the County Council that doesn't have housing responsibility involved in a housing project? But that was about our work with One Public Estate in bringing different organisations together, and it's a project that focuses on addressing the critical shortage of affordable homes for the NHS in particular and other key workers in Hampshire and the Isle of Wight by developing a pipeline of homes at below market rent levels to ensure the stability of healthcare provision in local communities. So it does have a direct impact upon us in terms of our social care provision and the availability of staff to do that. The project is enabled and funded by the LGA and the Cabinet Office's One Public Estate programme. By unlocking surplus NHS land and integrating housing with workforce strategy, the project has delivered real impact, supporting over 1,300 NHS staff and identifying over 560 development opportunities. And the second session was an in-conversation event about technology-enabled care, with a focus on the County Council's commissioned work with Impera Analytics. In partnership with district and borough councils, this work involved modelling future demand for affordable extra care housing using advanced analytics and techniques that had not previously been deployed by the local government sector. So for both sessions, officers were able to attend the conference thanks to the grants and project funding that they received, so at no cost to the County Council. And also, Hampshire Outdoors Service, in terms of, we should mention their Duke of Edinburgh volunteering. Many congratulations to the 740 active Duke of Edinburgh Award participants from SEND schools, people referral units and open award centres with Hampshire, who spent 10,374 hours of volunteering with Hampshire Outdoors between the 1st of April last year and the 31st of March 2025. The County Council is immensely proud of their dedication, effort and achievement of these young people who are making a really positive impact in their community, and it is a real commitment to go through Duke of Edinburgh. It's quite a time-consuming and arduous task, but really rewarding for those young people involved. And also we should highlight that Alex Moody, who is the head chef at Park Community College in Havant, has recently won the Food Kindness Hero Award in Jamie Oliver's Good School Food Awards. The award is for a scheme called Munch, which is a bit confusing for me because that's the name of our cat, but which the team at Park Community School created to provide after-school and school holiday meals free of charge for the most vulnerable families in the local community. The Munch scheme offers anyone in the community a free 2-course hot meal once a week. Every year, at Christmas, Alex cooks a 3-course dinner for up to 150 local residents who might otherwise go hungry or feel isolated. And during the school holidays, Alex runs a free family activity club which provides cooking sessions and a free hot meal. So huge congratulations and a thank you to Alex and all the staff at Park Community School for their outstanding efforts to tackle food poverty in the local community. And so finally, next week today is Hampshire Day, 15th of July. It's also St Swithin's Day, so let's hope it doesn't rain. Happy Hampshire Day to everybody next week. And I've just said that bit, luckily enough, so I hope it doesn't rain because it's St Swithin's Day. And that's it. That's me done. On to item 6, which is the Secure Children's Home. And I think Gary is going to present it to us.
Good morning, Leader. Good morning, Cabinet. So, yeah, we've got the paper around the Secure Children's Home, and you'll be aware, following your Cabinet decision in March earlier this year, that the DfE have made the provision to build a replacement secure children's home in Hampshire, and in particular how this presents a unique and significant opportunity for the County of Hampshire to invest in infrastructure supporting the most vulnerable children in our care. This recognises the significant expertise and experience the County Council has in delivering this provision at the current Swanwick Lodge site, which is not only rated outstanding by Ofsted, but is one of only 14 homes nationally. However, as Cabinet are aware, the building and facilities at Swanwick Lodge is reaching the end of its useful economic life. Following the previous Cabinet decision, a 6-month timetable extension has been agreed with the Department for Education, which will enable officers the time to consider potential new sites. This included some sites put forward by third parties, including district and borough councils, but also some new sites that have become available since the March Cabinet decision. These sites have all been evaluated against the DfE criteria that members will see in your packs and the associated confidential appendices. Following this exercise, the only site that meets the criteria is the current Henry Court School site in Fareham, which, following the lead executive member for Children's Services decision day in April earlier this year, is due to become available for alternative use within the DfE's timetable for the design and build of a new secure unit. You will see in the report that the alternative uses have been considered, including special educational needs and extra care housing provision. We are therefore seeking a decision today to progress the local authority business case with the DfE, which will identify the Henry Court site as the preferred site to now progress the business case and feasibility studies, with the indicative timetable and gateways included in paragraph 75 of your report. Members should also note that any decision to commit to building the unit would also require local public engagement through the normal planning process. Members will therefore see the recommendations in paragraphs 2 to 5 of the report and welcome any questions, Leader.
Thanks very much, Gary. And what we should also mention is that this is a report in 2 parts because there is an exempt appendix, or there are exempt appendices to this item. But I don't think any of us intend referring to them. If there was something that we did need to refer to within them, we'd have to go into exempt session briefly to be able to talk about that. So questions or comments, everybody? Lily.
Thank you. In view of the discussions that are going on at the moment with LGR, etc., I'm just wondering how this proposal could be impacted by the local government reorganisation, and will it still be a facility that benefits children from across the whole of a Hampshire area? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barman. And as you'll probably expect me to say, it's too soon to be very specific about that in terms of a final sort of solution to it. But what I would say is that, as we've seen in LGR happening across other parts of the country, what would normally happen is where the assets are located, almost the postcode of the asset that's located, that would sit within the operational responsibility of the new unitary authority that covers that patch. It's also important that when you see that timeline that I referred to in paragraph 75, the secure unit won't be up and built until 2031. So a new unitary authority would not only be responsible for finalising that process with the DfE, they would also have that responsibility for the procurement of the build and then also the delivery once it's up and running. But what I'd hope to achieve, as we see with the current Swanwick Lodge site, is that these are unique assets that are there for the benefit of all Hampshire families and children at the moment. And so what we would travel with the intention around is that we retain that principle as we move through LGR discussions and seek to ensure that that benefit that is currently afforded to all 1.4 million residents across Hampshire continues to be afforded to all in the future. But that would all clearly need to be agreed and discussed as part of LGR implementation.
Thanks. Zoe.
Thank you, Chairman. First of all, thank you for your continued work from our decision in March and those districts and boroughs that obviously engaged with us in finding a solution for a business case forward, because, you know, this is an extremely important asset and resource for our county, for the most vulnerable. And we need to remember that. Can you expand a bit more on the potential additional alternative use of the site for SEN provision? Given the growing demand, could Henry Court site not offer some much needed additional SEN support?
Thank you, Councillor Huggins. Yeah, so you'll see in the report that in paragraphs 46 to 48, we sort of summarised the work that we've been done, which is supplemented by the work that the leaders referred to in the exempt appendices around that potential alternative use for the site, which has included both consideration of around adults extra care and also consideration around SEND provision, which we know has huge demand pressures within the system at the moment. What we've concluded as part of that exercise is that there's 2 new SEND specialist schools already planned within a 10-mile radius of the current Henry Court site, as well as ongoing consideration of some satellite provision at available sites at the moment. And so what we've essentially concluded is that the priority for the brownfield bit of the Henry Court site, which is the bit where all the buildings are, the first priority in terms of development would be the secure unit, because that's where the need currently exists and that's where the strategic responsibility exists based on the conclusions within the paper. But what you'll all appreciate is that is a much wider site as well once you take into account the playing fields and the outer red line boundary of the site. So what we'll continue to do is continue to monitor that kind of demand and provision, continue to monitor government's policy intent around this, and we'll all be aware there's much more of a shift in terms of government's policy intent in terms of supporting children in mainstream provision rather than potentially new specialist centres being produced. So the focus at the moment, as you'll see in terms of the conclusion of the report, is to use the brownfield site for the secure children's unit in the knowledge that we're building that provision within the vicinity for SEND provision, but continuing to monitor the alternative use of the wider site and continue to keep SEND at the forefront of our thinking.
So I think that's it from Cabinet. Now, we've got local member, Councillor Bryant, Pam Bryant. Do you want to come and use a microphone, Pam, and make your comment? Yeah, just next to Gary is fine.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. I really wasn't intending. I was really coming to listen today. But I'm so pleased to have heard some of these comments already about how the site is going to be used. My great problem is that already I'm getting an awful lot of comments from local residents who are talking about having a prison there. Can we please perhaps put out some information to make sure that it does allay these fears, because it really is quite rife actually at the moment about it. I think we must make sure that from the onset they are very clear about what is going to be there. I've also got another problem actually with the hockey club that's got part of the site there, but that's a slightly different matter which perhaps I'll speak to you afterwards about. But it is mainly about the public perception and really what's coming over. Certainly to me, I don't know if Councillor Latham's had anything. He doesn't get quite as much comments from residents as I do, because I live so close to the site, as you well know. So that would be really helpful to put out some of this information, which I think it can only be beneficial to so many people for the site in the long term. Okay, thank you very much indeed.
To reassure you, Pam, so unfortunately, neither Ros or Steve are here, but it's a conversation that we've had about talking about how the current Swanwick site is used at the moment, and making it clear this isn't in any way something that is linked to the criminal justice system. This is for children who are incredibly vulnerable, and the home needs to be secure, not because they present a risk to others, it's a risk to themselves quite often. That's the issue, and so that's why it's described as such. And so some proactive communications around that should be quite straightforward. We have touched on the hockey club, and I don't think any of these plans necessarily impact on the hockey club's current use of the site, we think. So the hockey club should be they stay where they are, and they're not affected, we understand, at the minute.
I think it's just the perception there. They also have got something else going on within the hockey club regarding legal agreements. So I'll speak to you later about it. But thank you very much.
So thanks, Pam. Select Committee Chairs. Juliet, did you want to say anything?
Thank you, Leader. I'd like to thank officers for all their hard work in finding a site. I mean, having visited Swanwick, there is no doubt the site is tired and at the end of its life, and I was struck that it's not the best environment for neither children or staff as it exists. I think Councillor Bryant makes a really good point about comms, actually. These children are a huge danger to themselves rather than others, and just seeing how the workmen have to go in and take all sorts of precautions when they're working there, because these children are at huge risk to themselves. But I really would like to thank officers for moving on this to look for this site, and I really welcome the news. I think it's a really positive direction. Thank you.
And otherwise, Rod and no, all good. So, any other comments, everybody? So, this journey started at the beginning of the year, or the end of last year, with Stubbington, and we concluded that Stubbington wasn't the right site because we knew that this site then began to become a possibility once we talked through the different options. And I'd just like to say a huge thank you to all of you for being engaged with this and for doing all of the hard work and the hard mile to get us to the point where not only have we been able to come up with what I think is entirely the right solution, but also we've been able to persuade the Department for Education of that as well. And that's of huge credit to, unfortunately, none of the people who are here, other than Gary, in the respect of Stuart and Rob and Ros as well. But it's been a great team effort to get us to this point. Thank you to all of them for all the hard work. So I'm very happy to propose this to you, that the recommendations that are on pages 31 and 32 from paragraphs 2 to 5. Everyone in favour? Yeah, agreed. Thanks very much, Gary. So that the next item is the corporate performance assurance report. Jack. Sorry, we're only saying here that we had some questions prepared, as you know, but then we took some of them out because we didn't realise all of you were going to sit there. And so please don't be offended if we don't ask you a question, Jack.
I prefer safety in numbers, so I thought I'd bring all of my colleagues. So you have in front of you the annual corporate performance report for 24-25, which provides an annual record of assurance around the Council's performance against its Serving Hampshire strategic plan, as well as wider organisational performance. Appendix 1 of your papers is the actual report, which is the second of its kind following the approval of a new corporate performance assurance framework in July 23. So hopefully it's becoming increasingly familiar to you, and you'll note, of course, that mostly it links you to various sources of assurance that exist across the organisation, and in some cases refers to reports that have already been through the scrutiny process via the relevant democratic committee or elected decision maker. So within the report, you'll also see reference to some more detailed performance measures, which are things that have been identified as being specifically and particularly important to residents and members. So they are also covered in the report. You'll note that the productivity requirements established last year have now been withdrawn. However, we have included this year just an update on some of the actions for completeness, but we won't continue to do so going forward. So you've got some paragraphs in there from relevant directors by way of further assurance, and then you've got the report itself, which is split into 5 sections. One which is performance against the strategic plan priorities, one which is broader organisational assurance focused on staff, finance, governance, the section which links to performance measures against key statutory services which we know are of particular importance to Hampshire residents. Section 4 is about external assessments or inspections, and then section 5 is the piece I referred to around the update on the action plan from the productivity report from last year. And then finally, it's just to note that the local government and social care ombudsman determinations are still part of our performance assurance framework, but we will be bringing them in October of this year in a report, an annual complaints, performance and service improvement report. So they are still part of the same framework, they're just not included as they have been historically. That was all I was going to say by way of introduction.
Thank you very much. So, questions? Anybody? Liz?
Thanks. Can I just ask about school attendance? And there's certainly some categories where we're not doing very well, and I just wondered what we're doing to try and improve it. And have we seen any results so far?
Perfect, thank you. So you all note that the attendance is published by the DfE in arrears. So we've had nearly a whole academic year to work on attendance with all of those schools. We've put into place inclusion and engagement hubs for each area, which schools send their head teachers to or delegate to a deputy, but in the main we've had head teachers attending. And they've been absolutely instrumental in setting expectations and ensuring that the multi-agency support that schools require to help them improve attendance is all at hand. They've also been extremely useful for sharing live good practice stories with each other that mean that what is working in those areas can be spread as quickly as possible. We don't obviously have the published DfE updated attendance data yet, but we do collect local data, and from our local data we are very clear that the work that we are doing is having impact and that attendance is improving. We were particularly concerned about special schools, and the bringing together of the multi-agency support, including health, into one place is having real impact there. I don't know yet if we will be above national with our special school data because we don't have the national data and the gap is slightly bigger. But I am pretty sure that the work that we've done with secondary schools will mean that we are back in line with the national average for secondary schools. Thank you.
Zoe.
Thank you. My question's on people and serving Hampshire. I mean, there's much to celebrate in this festival, so thank you for the report, you know, celebrating our partnerships, our Ofsted outcomes, work around air quality, and the quality of our services and the hard work of our people. So thank you for that. My question is, how does the annual report provide assurance on the Council's people strategy and alignment on our statutory responsibilities and our transformation programme, but more importantly, ensuring that we continue that high quality service that we deliver? Thank you.
Thank you. So there's a number of bits in there. So I think there's something for me about the transparency of the data, which is serving to assure in terms of maintaining a focus on all of the kind of key elements of an employee's life cycle, because we need to get all of those elements of the life cycle right for our people in order to ensure that they can give of their best and do the jobs that we employ them to do in order to achieve outcomes for the residents of Hampshire. So the hope is that the transparency of the data and the ability for members and officers to ask questions about that data is part of that assurance process in and of itself. I think some of the downward trajectory of headcount probably speaks to assurance around some of the transformation pieces, which is often in the space of digital or process improvement, and often a consequence of those are reduction in cost, either the cost of the process itself or the cost of the resource required to deliver those processes. And also, those transformation programs are designed and delivered with the end user in mind. So hopefully that kind of, the report goes some way to kind of be another indicator of transformation and how transformation is being deployed across the organisation. We specifically try to speak to some of the particular areas where we have workforce challenges in terms of recruitment and selection, and our strategies for overcoming that. So hopefully that is part of the overall assurance.
Jan?
Thank you, and thank you, Jack, for this report. I've got a question on adult social care, and paragraph 8 is referring to the anticipated CQC inspection, which is really important. I think it's the first time that this authority will have been inspected on one of our most important directorates that reaches a great deal of vulnerable people. So Jess, are you able to outline the work that your staff and department have done in preparing for the inspection? And do you have a date, or do you have an anticipated idea when it'll take place? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Warwick. Yes, of course. This is very specific. We will receive our notification for CQC assessment on either the 14th of July, the 4th of August, or the 1st of September. We're in the last tranche of CQC assessment because we were one of the first to undertake a pilot to support CQC in the development of the assurance back in 2022. And we got a good for the domains that we were rated on then. But so we are absolutely primed. We are continuing extensive engagement with staff, which will be the absolute focus for CQC, and through initiatives such as Connected Care. And we're also capturing regularly case studies which show and demonstrate really good outcomes for people who call on care and support. And I draw your attention to the Making a Difference Awards later this week, which are a case in point really where excellent practice has really made a difference for residents. We're required to submit 38 information returns, and they've undergone significant internal scrutiny already, and we have been reviewing them and updating them on a monthly cycle. As Councillor Fairhurst and Councillor Oppenheimer know, we're regularly briefing and engaging members in that process alongside the leader and chief executive. And an external stakeholder group comprising of statutory partners and people with lived experience has also been established and is providing additional really helpful scrutiny and challenge and helping us shape our improvement actions too. So I hope that gives you a summary, Councillor Warwick. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Lily?
Thank you, Leader. It's a question for Patrick, actually, about universal services. We in universal services here, obviously, like all areas in the UK, face unprecedented challenges in maintaining our roads. We continue to have insufficient government funding to deliver a comprehensive, longer programme of proactive road maintenance. However, we are still able to deliver extensive repairs of potholes and road repairs with the government funding that we have, of approximately 14 million this year, whilst also making essential changes as a result of SB25. Big question, do you think the government are listening to us when we make requests for further funding? And if not, what else can we do about it? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Baumann. I hope they're listening to us, and we take every opportunity to lobby government where we can. I mean, what we've done with government, we've put a number of representations forward to them. We also talk to our members of parliament to make sure they're really clear on the position the county council faces in respect of our funding for highways and just how much we can do with the resources that we have. There's a couple of things I'd like to just bring to the attention of Cabinet. The first is that we have the National Highways and Transport Survey, and what we're looking to do is do a briefing on that for our Members of Parliament and try and bring out the areas where the Members of Parliament can represent the government. And what that does is continue to show the importance of what the government funding does in terms of the improvement of our highways. The second point I was going to bring out was really at the end of last month, we published the Local Highways Maintenance Transparency Report. And what that did is really just set out in detail how the funding is spent, what we do with that funding to maximise the value for money of the funding we receive, and the detail that goes into that for our 5,500 miles of roads. What we've tried to do with that report as well is not just demonstrate the value for money, but show where we're doing innovation, looking at our ways of working. So there is a whole raft of things in there supported by statistics of what we do with that funding. But the reality is it isn't enough, and therefore we need to continue to lobby government. So everything that we can do and that Cabinet can do to support that, which I know you do, is very helpful for us. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Patrick. So any other questions from Cabinet? No. Select Committee chairs? Rob?
Yeah, thanks, John. I've got one question. I found this a very useful report, particularly the comments about how Hampshire does compared to other parts or other counties. And I'd be very interested whether we're able to put in future reports more data on that, because it's one of the questions that I think quite a lot of our councillors get, is how we're doing compared to others. And there's lots of soft text about it. It'd be very useful to have some data in a report like this, putting Hampshire's performance in context of the range of where our other county neighbours actually perform on the same measures. So I don't know whether we're restricted from doing that by law, or whether we can actually publish data on not just ourselves, but on a wider range of other county councils doing the same thing.
I'm really happy to take that away. So I think if there's data in the public domain, we're not restricted from using it. I think the thing that we'll need to look at is whether we're comparing like for like. So often we report on data with sort of similar headings, but if we have a conversation with officers from that other council, actually it turns out that we're describing either slightly different processes, or we might include A to B of a process and report it under that data, where the other council, includes A to C, and therefore the difference. So I can take it away and have a look at it, particularly with directors, I think, because those nuances are likely to be in the specifics of, what is being measured by that council compared to what it is that we are measuring, and obviously, how does that speak to the outcomes that we're seeking to deliver for the residents. So if it's okay to take it away and explore it further, I'm not closed to it at all. I just think it's making sure it's doing what we wanted it to do.
Yeah, thanks for that. That's exactly what I was hoping for, because I think quite a lot of us and our residents find it quite complicated trying to compare across county boundaries, and therefore giving the professional expertise of our officers, the more you can actually put this information into context, the more usable it's going to be for, I guess, our residents, who this survey is really aimed at, rather than yourselves or ourselves. Thank you.
Okay, I think we're otherwise done. So our job with this one is to note the report and all the hard work that's gone into it. And it's a good sort of snapshot of where we all are. So all agreed? Yep, thanks very much. And so Jack and Posse, thank you very much. Two financial reports next. First is the end of year financial report 24-25. Andy.
Thank you, Leader. So this is the end of year financial report, which covers both the revenue performance and the capital performance and outturn for 24-25. And I'll just take you a few of the highlights, if that's okay. So Section D covers the revenue performance. Key things to note: really pleasing to report the early delivery of SP25 savings, just shy of 20 million. So that's excellent, and that will help as it will go into the BBR. The revenue underspend position was £5.6 million underspend. Again, excellent achievement, given that at the end of Q1, we were forecasting an overspend of 15 million. So to the action taken by directors, a significant turnaround in fortunes by year end. And that underspend was really helpful, but it's in the context that the budget was set by a draw from the budget bridging reserve, so that 5.6 effectively reduces that draw down to 68.5 million. In terms of capital spend during the year, 259 million. That was against the planned spend of 321. So there's some slippage that will go forward to next year of around 62 million. The report also sets out some key changes required to the capital programme, primarily in paragraphs 79 to 91. And you'll note there one of the big changes is the removal of the care home improvement programme, which reflects your previous decisions. Section D covers reserves, and you'll note there's been a reduction in reserves of 72 million during the course of 24-25, and the most significant element of that was the draw to balance the budget, that's 68.5 million. And then paragraph 99 covers the DSG deficit, and we note the increase on a cumulative basis to 213 million by year end. Section I covers Treasury and sets out the borrowing and investment activity during the year. And again, pleased to report that we complied with all the Treasury management strategy and the relevant statutory and guidance. And then Section I, statutory accounts, again, really pleased to report that we were able to publish the statutory accounts by the statutory deadline of the 30th of June, just passed. And then two parts of recommendations that don't come out fully in the report, just to draw your attention to. There are two recommendations, one around an earmark of £5 million for redundancy, to make sure we've got provision for redundancy going forward, and also 3.5 million earmark for academies which will convert, schools which convert to academy status where they have deficit balances, so setting aside sums to cover off those amounts. And I shall pause there, Leader.
Super, thanks very much, Andy. And my apologies, I should have welcomed you. So this is the first time you're in your first cabinet meeting.
Yeah, could be.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Colleagues, any questions of Andy Jan?
Yes, please. Thank you, Andy. And can I congratulate you on a really thorough report that was easy to read? It's a pleasure to read, but I understood it, which is really fantastic. And also to say how pleased to see that overspend outturn be reported as an underspend, which is really positive, and that shows that our spend controls are working. And presumably, my first question is, will we continue those in the current year? I'm guessing the answer is yes. But there are overspends within directorates, and paragraphs 28 to 36 sort of outline, as we would expect, mainly in the sort of adults and children's directorates. So to what extent do we include those in the predicted budget for the forthcoming year? Thank you.
Thank you. If I pick up the first point around spend controls, absolutely, they've continued into 25-26. We believe they've made a significant difference, both actually in terms of reducing spend, but also the perception is clear about managing spend. So that's been really helpful. And you note in paragraph 26 some of the impacts, or 25 and 26, around bringing down some of that lower level spend that is always good to control. In terms of the direction position, yes, so overspends in adults and children's, and those of that demand and cost activity will flow through to the current financial year. So we have the update of the MTFS also on the agenda today. We haven't moved the gap yet, but I do note in that report, which we'll come on to, that those demand pressures are likely to flow through and lead to a change in the gap, which will come back and report again in November. But we'll also pick that up during the quarterly monitoring, so quarter one will come around very shortly for your consideration.
Thanks. Any other questions? Russell?
Thanks for the report, Andy. Can I just drill down a bit into the dedicated schools grant? So there's a deficit balance of 213 million. Are we any clearer on the position with the statutory override when we get to next March, when it's due to come to an end?
Thank you, Councillor Oppenheimer. Some further clarity, although not an absolute answer, which I'll explain. So in the spending review and then the fifth funding review just announced in June, the government did set out their plans for DSG. Two elements. The first one is a review of the SEND system, and they're going to publish something in the schools white paper. So that's about changing the impact that that activity will have on the DSG deficit. But they also announced an extension to the statutory override through till March 28. So an extension by 2 years, which I might describe as just kicking the problems down the road for a further 2 years. And depending on how quickly the changes to SEND reform actually come in, of course, between now and March 28, there's every chance that deficit will continue to grow with actually no outcome in terms of how it will be dealt with. The government have said they will bring forward plans in the local government finance settlement later in this year to enable us to, or to help us understand how we might manage those deficits going forward, which a personal view, I've taken the read they may instruct us or help us around how we might borrow for that and bring that deficit down over a number of years, but that's purely speculation on my part. There's definitely no answer yet. We'll wait for the local government finance settlement.
Can I just have a follow-up question there? This balance, I mean, we obviously haven't got the money to pay it back. It's sitting as a deficit on our balance sheet, but presumably it's sitting as an asset on the Department for Education's balance sheet. So the only way to write it off is for the Treasury to come up with the money and write it off at the government level. This is real money that's been spent. If it's 213 million in Hampshire, it's presumably 2 or 3 billion nationally. And that money has to be found. And I think, you know, the key point here is that as long as they leave it swept under the carpet sitting on our balance sheet, it's causing damage to our financial position. It affects our whole reserve strategy, which, as we all know, is increasingly important as we're leaning into our reserves to cover our own, you know, revenue deficits.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It is beginning to bite. It's certainly depleting our cash balances. As you say, it's a real cost that we're having to match from our cash. So that can only get worse. And I think the implications for that, as we've set out and discussed previously, is that that will bring forward our need to borrow, which will be a real cost to Hampshire County Council. I think our preferred outcome would be that the government do write off that debt. But I'm not sure whether we will get that outcome in the fullness of time. As I said, I suspect it's more likely that they will look in our direction to cover that through a means to be determined, which I anticipate might be borrowing.
That's cheerful.
Sorry.
So we borrow in order to repay the government, presumably from the government, which is completely ridiculous. Select committee chairs, any comments? No. Any other questions or comments, everybody? Okay, so we have the report, and we're asked to approve the recommendations on pages 109, 110, paragraphs 3 to 9, and subsections A to I. All of these recommendations go on to full council next week. So everyone happy with those? Agreement?
Agreed.
Yeah. Thanks very much. So medium-term financial strategy update. Andy again, please.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. So the purpose of this report is to provide an interim update on the medium-term financial position, and the report really provides an update to the position that was taken to full council and cabinet as part of budget setting in February. So the report covers quite a few areas. It covers the June comprehensive spending review, the fifth funding review, the summarised findings of the Public Accounts Committee, which I think are quite insightful, an update on delivery of SP25 savings, any changes to the budget gap, the risks within the position, options for setting and balancing the budget for 26-27, and your correspondence with the Minister and his reply. I think if I would start just by going to paragraph 18, really, which sets out a good summary, I think, which is since February there's been a number of developments which impact the medium-term position, covered in the report. I think, in essence, there's been no improvement to the forecast budget gap, and I guess my anticipation is that it will actually worsen as we go through the year and feel the impacts of many of those announcements that are to come. So it doesn't really change the outlook that Rob set out in his CFO Section 25 statement that went to both Cabinet and full council in February. Just quickly running through some of the highlights in the report. So Section E covers the spending review, which was published on the 11th of June. If I take you to paragraph 21, that covers core spending power. The government set out that core spending power will increase by 2.6%, but I think what's really important to note is their assumption around council tax. So you only get to 2.6% if all councils across all tiers raise council tax in line with the referendum limit. And I think also interesting to note the work reported through Pixel via the County Councils Network, that of the total increase in spending of 9.8 billion, 76% of that, or 7.5 billion, will come from those council tax rises. So it's form a significant part of that forward look around additional funding. And then paragraph 25 just picks up that comment around DSG high needs deficit and that confirmation from the spending review, both about the SEND review and also the additional extension to the statutory override. Section F then just picks up the fair funding review, again launched on the 20th of June, and that consultation runs until the 15th of August. Again, just a couple of the key issues. Paragraph 29 sets out the individual elements of the formula, and we note that that each indicator will be based on analysis of local authority spending levels and an area cost adjustment. And we've also picked up previously from government there's likely to be a tilt towards deprivation, which historically hasn't served Hampshire well in terms of funding. Paragraph 31 then picks up this thorny issue of council tax or notional council tax. So the government will use notional council tax as an adjustment to our grant level. So they will take the average council tax, our council tax base, work out what we notionally could raise, which of course we can't because of referendum limits, but they will deduct that sum from our grant funding. So part of our response will be to highlight the unfairness of that approach, which I'm sure many other councils will also raise. And then paragraph 32 just sets out that those changes will be phased in over 3 years and that there'll also be a full reset of the business rates system. Section G, a very timely report. I think the Public Accounts Committee report on local government financial sustainability, and they set out a number of conclusions in paragraph 38. I'll just maybe mention one or two. So they note that significant financial pressures are constraining local authorities' ability to invest in prevention and leading to reductions in early prevention. And they note that the financial pressures have led to short-term and unsustainable approaches. And I think interestingly, they also highlight the fact that the government really didn't take into account the impact of national insurance contributions on local government. And again, we felt the impact of that already feeding through in this year. And then the final section, section H, just picks up the leader's communication with the minister. We've raised some key issues around our financial position and also the link through to local government reorganisation. We've had a response from the minister, and I suspect the next steps will be direct talks with government officials around our position. And I shall pause there.
Thanks. And the sooner we have those conversations, the better, because they've asked us to talk to them and then decided not to come back to us. Russell.
Sorry.
Thank you, Leader. I agree, Andy, that the conclusions of the Public Accounts Committee are very helpful. They've also made a number of recommendations that are very helpful, and some of them are even urgent recommendations. So I just want to ask what will happen next. Presumably, the government will have to respond to those recommendations before it gets to the local government finance settlement. So are you expecting we can look forward to a government response in October, November time, and a select committee hearing at which we will get, hopefully, some insight into where this is all going?
Thank you. Yes, the government, I understand, are required to respond within 2 months. I think whether we look forward to that response, I think we will wait and see. But they were often the response will be fairly bland, as you'll see to some select committee reports. But there are some key recommendations. We would hope that the government do take notice. I mean, the government nationally have said they understand the financial pressures facing local authorities, and they have said that they're desirous to fix those financial problems through the spending review and the settlement going forward. So if they respond positively in line with their announcements, then maybe we should look forward to their response.
Jan?
Yes, Andy, you mentioned the fair funding review, and it felt like June was a lot of government announcements, but actually the detail of those announcements isn't always what's in the headline, it's what lies beneath. The fair funding review is much anticipated, but we are being asked for our views on that. And can you give us an idea of how and when we will respond? Will we publish our response? And do we work with other local authorities when we respond. So if we all said the same thing, is it more likely to be taken note of? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So the consultation closed on the 15th of August, and our current timeline, we're hoping to have our full draft of our response by the end of July. And then, yeah, to pick up your point about working with others, the intention is we will share our response with colleagues across the sector, both with CCN colleagues as well. And then we can refine our response as necessary if there's points that we haven't quite picked up correctly or would like to change on the back of comments of others. So yeah, very much we'll share that and we'll learn from others where we can, but hopefully others can take some key points from our response as well. We'll definitely respond around the council tax. I think that's a really key issue for us that is unfair in the system, and we'll certainly talk about things like deprivation not being helpful from our perspective.
Super, thanks. Any other questions, everybody? Chairs, no? Okay, so we're asked to note the recommendations on page 171 in paragraph 2. And again, this is one of those papers that will go to council next week. Is everyone happy? Agreed? Well, thanks very much. And so our final item is about substitute members, David.
Thank you, Leader. It's a technical report, really, recommending we increase the number of substitute members on select committees to 8. Reflects the size of the select committees we have here and the advantages of having all full complement of members at those actual meetings. So this is ultimately will require a change to the constitution. So it's a recommendation from the Cabinet to the full council.
Super, thanks very much. And this is something that I know that we've been talking about for a little while. It doesn't predetermine the report of the Hampshire 2050 working group on constitution, but it's just something that so practically we can increase the number of substitutes going forward, and we'll be putting it to council next week. Any comments or questions from the team? Juliet?
Thank you, Leader. I really welcome this, particularly with my committee. People have a lot of commitments on their time, and Select Committee for Children and Young People, we really are scrutinising important policies that affect our children and young people. So the more member participation, the better. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also welcome this. One word of note that I'd like to bring forward, though, there are a number of committees that have quasi-judicial elements to them, not least of which the Regulatory Committee. And just to note that we need to ensure that relevant training takes place for any increased numbers.
This is just for select committees, Rod. It's not for the technical committees, where obviously people with audit and with regulatory and so on, anybody that sits on those or sits as a substitute does need to receive the appropriate training in order to be able to be part of them. And so it doesn't extend to those. This is just for the main select committees, which have the larger membership in any event. Okay. Recommendations are on page 193, and this will go to council again next week. Is everyone happy? Yeah, great. In which case, that's us, and the meeting is over. Thanks so much for coming along, everybody, and we can end the webcast.